How's it going, guys? Today I just want to talk a little bit about the identity crisis that is the FT-891. In a moment you'll see a closer up shot of some of the menus and some of the things that I talk about through this review, but I just wanted to talk about my thoughts on this radio. I've had it for about a year now, and I've got probably 600 or 700 contacts on it, so I put it to use. I've tested it out in the field, and I just wanted to give my opinion to anyone who may be thinking about buying this radio to see if this is right for them. The FT-891 is a very portable radio, as in it's got a small form factor, but it also packs a lot of punch with 100 watts of output power. It's a workhorse on digital modes. Admittedly, I've ran this thing, crucify me, at 100 watts FT8 for a very long time throughout the night. But what it really excels at is its audio clarity. The audio clarity on this radio is better than any radio I've ever used HF-wise. I don't know what's going on with the receiver on this radio, but I can dig out voices out of this radio that I don't think I could ever on other radios like my 6100 or even my FT-450D when I had it. There's something about the receiver on this radio that is just magic. Voices come through nice, clear, and crisp, and that's the strong point of this radio. And that's going to navigate me into some of the more weaker aspects of the radio and why I think it's such an odd position here in 2023. First, let's talk about whenever you go to buy a radio, you should have a specific idea of why you want to use that radio in mind. What's it going to be used for? And if you start asking questions like that about the FT-891, you're going to come into a couple of hiccups here in 2023 with a lot of other radios on the market. And let's talk about those real quick. First, this is a highly portable radio. It's small. Now, there's always trade-offs when you talk about a radio that's small like this. And with the FT-891, you're going to notice that there's not many buttons to play around with on the cover. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 7 buttons up top. You have about 5 buttons on the bottom, and you have 3 knobs. And that's about all of the control that you have with the radio. Now, that keeps it simple, and it keeps it very small, but if you'd like to do a lot of adjustments, adjusting a notch filter and things like that, you're going to have to start going through settings, and it's not something that's very viable while you're in the middle of a contact. For that reason, it makes it kind of awkward as a base station radio with a lot of ones on the market like the 7300 or the newer Yaesu radios that feature all the bells and whistles right on the radio, that you can take advantage of the space that you have at home in order to tune things exactly how you want to tune it without digging through 2 or 3 menus to get there. So in that way, the portability makes it awesome out in the field. But as a base station radio, in terms of ease of use and adjusting those filters on the fly, it doesn't measure up with other base station radios that are on the market right now. Now, the problem with this radio in the field is that it has no antenna tuner built in, which, as of right now, your QRP radios and a lot of your radios that are meant to be portable are already packing internal batteries, or they're packing those antenna tuners built into the radio. And this radio has neither. Unlike what we've seen with the FT-818D or some of these other QRP radios that have been on the market, or even my last Yaesu radio, the FT-450D, had a built-in tuner. For this radio now, you have to pack a resonant antenna to the field with you, and if you don't, you're going to need an antenna tuner. And if you add an antenna tuner, such as the MFJ 939 that I have here, you're already adding considerable amount of setup, additional setup you're going to have to do, weight, and bulkiness to what would be a portable setup if you were going to use it that way. If you were going to use this radio with a portable antenna, that is fine. You don't have to do that. But myself, I like to experiment around a little bit, so I might want to use different things as an antenna out in the field, or I might want to have the ability to. In an emergency situation, I might not have a perfect antenna. I might have to use a gutter. I might have to use something else. So I like to have the ability to tune an antenna that may not be particularly resonant, but if you have a perfectly resonant antenna, this radio is going to be okay. Another drawback of this radio, and a plus side if you're at the base station, is is 100 watts. So if you're advertising this radio as a 100 watt radio, that's great for base stations. But out in the field, 100 watts is not going to last too much longer in your battery life than if you were to go with something like a QRP radio. For that reason, 100 watts outside, it's nice to have there, but it's a little overkill, and if you're mobile, it's definitely going to drain the battery that you're using and decrease the lifetime that you're going to be able to activate whatever you're activating. But the plus side, on the counter side of that, you can always turn the radio down to 5 or 10 or 15 watts or whatever and do QRP with it. It's just, to me, the radio is just in a very weird position now, because in the market we have things like the X6100 now, which is a SDR portable built-in battery. The 705, it's portable because it has the built-in battery. It's starting to make those radios look a lot better for portable ops compared to this. Because now, instead of, if you put quality aside of such a big three like Yaesu, Kenwood, or ICOM, and you buy one of these Zygu radios like I own, then that's the only purchase it power that this thing would have left over a radio like that out in the field, is knowing that you're buying a radio that's probably one of the higher brands. It's probably got higher quality components inside, and that's always something that's, you know, left to be determined until somebody breaks it apart and analyzes things. I will say with my X6100, there's a lot of broadcast interference, and this radio again has beautiful, clean audio. I would like to see a successor to this radio if it had built-in batteries, if it had an antenna tuner, and they were able to maintain this size. That would be wonderful. And I know that's asking for a lot, but we're getting to the point where that should be available. Let's dig into the menu system a little bit and talk about why I'm not a huge fan of the Yaesu menu system. Now, the radio itself, like I said, is pretty portable. The display looks nice. Let's see if the camera will fix to the screen. And the receiver is wonderful. You'll see that the display, it shows you mostly what you need to know. Now, one of the perks, though, of the lack of buttons that got around it, which I really like, is you can actually, when you go into these function menus and you have to dig through a setting, if there's something that you need to use quite often, you can actually hold in one of the buttons here and you can assign it to that button. In my case, I have the tuner toggled on and off the meter, just in case I want to switch between power, ALC, things like that. And I also have noise reduction in the clarifier. So things like the meter would have been really handy to have, to be able to see power meter, ALC, and SWR. I think it would have been really nice to be able to see at least two of those at once, because now, if, for example, if I'm doing digital, I need to check my power. Then I need to check my ALC to make sure I'm not going over. And then I need to check my SWR as well to make sure that my antenna is tuned properly. You should be able to see your power and your SWR and things like that, I believe, at all times, even if it's a numerical value. But what a lot of people get hung up on is the menu system. And if you go into the menu system, hold in M. The thing is, there is all the way up till 18-03 menu items. And this is very convoluted. There's a lot of options in here that just don't need to be in here on the menu to overcomplicate things. So you're on the go, and if you have to go in and adjust things all the time to this menu, it's very obnoxious if you don't have a way to reference where you need to go to. And there's just a lot of options in here that you wouldn't even see on a big radio that are just jamming up the menu system. There's just a little too much for what this is. I'm a big option guy. I love to go in and I love to change things, but there's just too much here. And half of these I'll never touch. They're just things that I'll actually just never need. Like, why do all these CW memories need to be in the main menu? I don't know. And I was going to go through and count how many power settings there are. Like out level, let's see. Like AM out level. Is that the power for AM? There's just a lot of stuff in here that doesn't need to be here. Or it needs to be into some type of sub-menu. I believe that's power because here's FM out power. Let's see, there's two. I probably skipped one. There's a third power menu. A bunch of equalizer, like who knows what all of this stuff is. Like, you would have to really dig into the manual to figure out and adjust EQ1, EQ2, EQ3. I have no idea. And here's another section for equalizer stuff. So this is like 15, I don't know, 15 options or 10 to 15 options of equalizer settings, and I have no idea really what they're meant for. Besides, I mean, we have bandwidth, we have frequency, but what does that mean in context? And here's, you know, 2 more power settings. So there's just a lot going on here. Other than that, I do commend, the screen looks very nice on this radio. We can at least see if we're on upper side band, if the tuner's enabled. We can see our frequency. There's just a lot going on with this radio. And it does pack a lot of functions into the radio. There's a lot of settings that you can change and you can go in to adjust. But the menu setting and the lack of explanation or text in those menus, obviously because it's a smaller screen, makes it really hard to determine without really just looking online and looking at what other people are saying to figure out what each of those items do. Some of you guys in the comments, you may be FT-891 experts. You'll be able to go in and list all of what I just talked about in equalizer and explain everything. But the average Joe, amateur radio operator, is not going to turn on this radio, and they're not going to know what a lot of that stuff is. They're never going to touch it. And quite frankly, I've never touched it in my year of having it with 500 or 600 contacts. And that's not something that we should put menu items. We shouldn't put menu items that I won't touch in a year right beside 6 different options for power, and still have to sort through those. You know, what is the difference between HF power and AM power? How do they relate to each other? If one's turned lower than the other, which one takes over precedence? So I think that's a valid rant on the Yaesu menu system, as much as I love the radio. Now, my final verdict is, if you're looking for a radio with probably the best receiving audio quality on the market, I can honestly say that I believe the FT-891 has all the other radios beat. If you don't care about a waterfall and you don't care about adjusting all the knobs and spaces as a base station, this radio is also for you. But who I think this radio is really good for is someone who wants to pump out that 100 watts on digital. Am I right? It's a radio that I believe, and kind of my overall review is, it suffers from an identity crisis. This radio in 2023 doesn't know if it wants to be a POTA radio or if it wants to be a base station radio, and that's because it puts out a lot of power. It's a very small form factor. It doesn't have that in tuner. It doesn't have that external battery, which puts it in an awkward position. But I love it. It will stay as my base station radio until one day I decide to upgrade to a large one. But that's my synopsis of this radio. It's been a really great radio. It seems very rugged. Yaesu radios are always well built. If you're looking for a HF base station radio, maybe as your first radio, I think this is a very good option. If you're looking for something as a permanent base station that you know you will never move, I would look at probably spending several hundred more dollars for, as we move into the digital age, something with a onboard sound card. If you're looking for a portable radio and you're using a resonant antenna and you don't care about packing around power supplies, this right here would be a great portable station. But there's going to be trade-offs with each way, and it doesn't excel at either. It's going to be a jack of both trades, portable and the base station. So if you're looking maybe for one radio, that I would say this radio is perfect for people who want the 100 watts of a base station and also want the portability of POTA, but they don't want to buy 2 different HF radios. This radio can easily be used as an HF base station because of the power that it puts out, and it can also be used as POTA because of the portability that it has with a small form factor. So if you're not looking at getting to your first HF radio and you're not sure if you want to do portable operations or base station, or you want one radio for both, this is a great option. I love my Yaesu. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments about my commentary. I know a lot of people are passionate about the radios, so if you have to critique some of my critique on the Yaesu, go for it in the comments. Let me know. If you agree with me as well, and you sympathize with me on the whole identity crisis, let me know down below as well. But I really appreciate you guys for watching, and 73 to you.